Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Icon. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. Today, we are back on board with the Man General, the new addition to the Chicago Huntsmen, and they are taking on the boys from Toronto. So this just happened yesterday. They did end up playing these maps, and I will say that they were fairly close. This one, I won't sell it out, but overall, it looked okay, right? Some maps looked good. Some looked like they could definitely be a little bit better. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're curious, you can go follow General. If you want to go through and watch some more of these scrims, you can absolutely go do that. But overall, they looked okay. Some maps, they looked good. Some maps, they looked like they definitely need some improvement, especially with communication and stuff like that. But that's to be expected, right? Jordan's only been playing for the last 3 or 4 days. So you definitely can't expect them to hop into this and be a well-oiled machine. But with that, let's get into the actual analysis for today. They're currently on P1. That's about to end in 10 seconds, and we're going back to P2. So with that happening, Chicago did a fantastic job of two things. Not only holding spawns and holding map position for P2, but they also did a really nice job of getting time, and the majority of the time inside of P1. Most of the time, in almost every instance, those two things don't go hand in hand, right? A lot of times, if you're selling out to make sure that you don't give up spawns for P2, then sometimes you give up time inside of P1. That's just kind of the way that it works. But being able to both hold map position and get time inside of P1, that's a really nice job out of Chicago. Now, with that said, they were just kind of challenged a little bit inside of P2. They gave up a little bit of time, but you saw when General came up off a spawn right there, he spawned in the back left corner. So they were able to hold down spawns, and now with the next 20 seconds, as long as they're able to withstand that last wave, it looks like Cammy's still pushing forward. As long as they're able to withstand that, they're going to get the last of those 10 seconds that are in there, and they're going to have a massive lead as it rotates from P2 over to P3. With that being said, we are on the transfer over to P3, so a lot of stuff happens inside of P1, inside of this warehouse. And you can see that as we're rotating over, this is the main route that whoever is holding P2 wants to take. So with that said, let's go ahead, mini-map right above my head, let's draw that out so you guys have a better understanding of exactly what's happening as we're leaving P2. So Chicago had control of P2. As they're leaving, you obviously want to get this side control, right? You want to have control of the left-hand side of the map so that as it rotates from P3 to P4 and ultimately back to P5, you have spawns for P5. P2 and P5 are the most important on this. So there's multiple ways that you could do this, right? You could run right through mid trying to get control of P3, but the stickiest spawn as we're moving forward is back here by back yellow. So as teams rotate out of P2, you'll see them go through P1, they'll hit top L, they'll hit bottom L. Then if they can get time inside of P3, that's great, but ultimately they want to get back in that back corner, because if they get that corner spawn, that back yellow spawn, then they're going to be set up as it moves forward from P3 to P4 to P5. So that's what you're going to be watching as we move forward here. It does look like Scump is kind of hitting mid. So right there, when General got that spawn inside of P1, that's already a really nice sign, because what that tells you is that Chicago has taken kind of control of mid-map, right? As they were back at P2, had they have died, they still would have spawned all the way back at P2. But since he spawned inside of P1, that means that they have slowly moved up and they have gained some map control. And off of that last spawn that you just saw, when he spawned inside warehouse, he was able to push up through, and not only do they have time, not only do they have control of P3 right now, but they got spawns. So as you're moving forward from P3 to P4, sometimes you go negative on these two hills, right? Because ultimately it's easier to get inside of P4 from P2 side of the map, from kind of that forklift side of the map. It's a little bit easier to get inside of P2, get control of it, and get time. But that time inside of P4 usually doesn't outweigh what you're possible or what it's possible of getting inside of P5. So right now there's 30 seconds left in the current hardpoint, and they've given up the majority of the time inside of P4. But even so, even if, so look at the score right now, it's 123-70. Even if the first round, the first set of rotations was to end right now, they didn't get another second inside of P5, they would have already won that first set of rotations by a ton, right? Most of the time after that first set of rotations, you want to be somewhere around like the 125, 135 range. So the fact that they're already there is a really good sign, and they're set up. Ooh, that's a tough spawn right there. So that spawn by General is kind of a little bit odd, and a lot of times you'll get that spawn if both your left and your right hand side is pushed up slightly. Now they were able to recover. You can see the green arrows if you look at General's minimap. You can see that there are green arrows behind him over there by bottom yellow, but that was a weird spawn. Let me show that real quick. So Chicago had position of P5, right? So if the enemy team, will say Toronto's pushing up from P4 on this side, and General dies, and nobody's on the other side, then he would spawn over here, right? Just as it's the exact opposite. As long as they aren't too far in, if the enemy's pushing up over here by yellow, and you still have control, then you'll spawn over here on the back left side. But if your enemy's pushing forward and they have somebody in this range, then the game has nowhere else to put you. So if you have people right here as they're pushing up, then the game will spawn you out kind of over here by P4, and that's what you just saw from General. So little bit of an interesting spawn there, but it does look like they were able to cover, and right now with 30 seconds left, they're already padding their lead. It's already at 150, and if you have that at the end of the first set of rotations, then this map is absolutely going your way. But with that said, again, we are only in our second Jordan POV, so I do want to hear a little bit in terms of their conversation, what they're talking about strategy-wise, and what they're thinking moving forward. I really like his communication style, so as we go ahead and turn up their team volume, let's listen into Jordan a little bit, see what he's talking about, see how he's talking about, see his vibes, his moods, all that stuff. But with that, let's go ahead, let's turn up their volume, let's listen in.
I'm gonna help you. Alright, me and Seth are L right now. Got needed. Alright, we're waiting for you guys. Nothing AC. One's by hill. Hold on, I'm needing their side. I got killed. Yo, top PC, Alec, top PC, he's flanking. That's him, that's him, that's him. Nice, good job. I'm trying to stay alive for me. I'm here.
I'm gonna pause this real quick just because there are some things that might not seem really important, but they are. So as that last 15 or 20 seconds played out, he was constantly saying, Seth and I are top L, Alec above you, flanking AC, stuff like that. And those are call outs that you don't always get all the time, right? He's constantly feeding information to his teammates, especially in the call outs like saying that he and Seth were top L. When he's making call outs like that, he's telling the other three teammates where the rest of them are so that they know how to judge where they should go moving forward. You don't always get communication like that, and I think him being a coach previously might have a little bit to do with that. Let's go ahead. Let's listen back in.
Yeah, I got him. One's on me, nice. I'm staying down. Alright, get all this time. Just get all this time. Alright, I'm staying down. Alright. Stay down.
I know I'm pausing a lot, but that's something else that's really important. So I think that comes from his background of being a coach, but he just mentioned, let's get all this time. We need all this time. And the reason why would he say to his teammates that they need all that time? Because they don't have map control for P2. So you can't look forward to, or you can't count on getting 40 or 50 seconds from P2, and then P3 and P4 will also probably be a little bit squirrely, right? You don't really know what's going to happen inside those two hills. So just by him saying that, he knows the importance of getting this 30 seconds and then hopefully stringing together the time from P5. I doubt it'll go that far based on how this map is going so far, but it's a really heads up call in all of this commotion and all of this hecticness that's going on inside the current P1. Let's go ahead and listen back in.
Down by hill. Good job. Good job. Get time on you guys. Get time. Good job. I'm coming out. Milk truck, yeah, he's on me. Yeah, there's two by milk truck. One below you, Dylan. My spawn close. I'll do it. One last side right now.
Your time, slow down. Watch the door. Stop, Scav.
Dude, he's green right now, camming.
Door.
Let's try to push up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you guys? Yeah, we spawn first.
So as you're watching this, I just want to go through and I want to talk to you guys about this just really slightly, just real quick here, that if they didn't get 40 seconds inside of P1, then now the fact that Toronto has control of P2 would be really bad, right? So even if Toronto gets all 60 seconds inside of P2, over the course of P1 and P2, they're only going -20 during those two hills, right? They got 40, the enemy team got 60, so they're -20. Whereas, had they constantly tried to flip over and over again and they were unsuccessful, and say 30 points end up going toward Toronto, now you're -90, right? If you go -30 on P1 and they go you go -30 P1, you go -60 P2, now that's -90 over the course of those two hills. So that's kind of what you have to think about if you don't have map possession for the start of P2. Let's go ahead and turn it back up.
Hold my first. Nice, good job.
Hold my first just means
flip, right?
just watch warehouse as they try to push through.
Good job. You guys have mid, right? One bottom, Vance dead. Yep, I'm staying down by time. I don't have a trophy on me. Alright. Staying down by hill. Staying down. Alright, yo. Okay, watch my first. Literally. Yo, keep watching my first, please. Give me the hit up for their mid. He's one left side green wall. He's in front of you guys. Nice. I have time with you. Yep. Yeah, one's middle map. Candy. One shot. Absolute below you, Seth. Nice. Good job.
All right, so incredible map there. I mean, the one thing I want to talk about after we get through and we see like how the scores were and stuff like that, I really want to talk about the communication style, and I'll draw on screen exactly what was going on there. So I do want to draw on the map just real quick a little bit of what was going on. So let's look at these scores. Obviously, General might not have the slaying power yet that some of these other top pros have, but what he made up for was the communication. Obviously, 11 and 23 is just really, really bad. I think it'll get better, right? Envoy, RCD, Seth have been competing at the highest level for 4 or 5 months now. But on the minimap, I do want to draw this out real quick. He was inside of P3, and over again, the first thing he asked is he's told his teammates to hold his P1, which means hold the push over here. And then he asked they couldn't have flipped, right? Which means he doesn't have to worry about being flanked from this way. And then he asked, we have mid control, right? So as he's talking, he's just making sure that all of these routes that could be pushing him are locked down. And that's just a super heady play, right? Whereas if you're inside hill, maybe you're personally checking all those, but as he's inside hill, he's constantly gathering information from where his teammates might be. And I think that is a super heady play. So with that, guys, if you're new around here, you enjoy this sort of content, make sure, if it's your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you have any comments whatsoever, put them down below. I love the comments. I love the interaction, all that stuff. So make sure you leave a comment, leave a like before you head on your way. And with that, thank you guys so much. I will catch you in tomorrow's upload.